Hello, my name is David Ades. I'm a certified professional life coach, specializing in the recovery from narcissistic abuse. Today's video is about trying to process and make sense of and frame the unframeable, the frame-breaking, the impossible to make sense of, the unprocessable, bottomless pit of pain that the narcissist is, and therefore leaves one with. Think of narcissism, whether it comes into your life, so unfortunately, in the form of an individual, maybe with NPD, or it comes in the form of some group, some narcissistic, maybe cult or something. Regardless, think of narcissism as psychological death. Narcissism is, the narcissist is, an unprocessed, unprocessable, senseless, impossible to make sense of, bottomless pit of pain, psychological death. So, what do you think someone is left with upon getting too close to that sort of phenomenon? One is left with that sort of phenomenon. You get too close to psychological death, you get the psychological death touch. Narcissism touches your heart, it gets corrupted, collapses inward on itself, like some sort of black hole. Now you're left trying to process the unprocessable, trying to integrate the unintegratable, trying to make sense of, in other words, trying to bring into your scope of reality, internal and external reality, trying to bring into your scope of reality something that, refuses to enter the scope of reality. A narcissist, a good word for a narcissist is abhuman. Not quite human. There's something alien, and there's something alien about what they leave you with. Narcissism represents the underbelly, the underside, the gunky underside of the human condition. That is what they introduce to you. It is the halls of the underside of the human condition. The narcissist inducts you into those halls. This makes it so you have to, over time, turn the absolute underside of the human condition into a teacher. You have to process the unprocessable. You have to bear the unbearable, to put it in in the words of a Buddhist monk, I think it was, who said it that way. The narcissist inducts you into the halls of pain, where the most profound questions that a human being is capable of asking are asked. The victim of narcissistic abuse, the survivor of narcissistic abuse, is tasked with asking, at least, hopefully not having to answer. That's a matter of time what you do with these questions. Anyway, you're tasked with asking some of the most profound questions that a human being can ask and has ever asked. How to grieve the ungrievable. One of the possible consequences of being narcissistically abused is ending up with prolonged grief disorder. Talk about struggling to grieve. Talk about something that appears to one as ungrievable. That's what we're talking about here. If it ever sounds like I'm exaggerating, then I'm going to direct you to someone who maybe speaks in a similar or more profound way about narcissistic abuse than myself, who's more credible than myself on the matter. The psychologist Sam Vaknin, who coined the term narcissistic abuse, also compares the victim of narcissistic abuse to the victim of proper torture. The victim of torture is methodically relieved of their sense of humanity. The torture victim's sense of self is methodically whittled away at. Their humanity is undermined. So too it goes for the victim of narcissistic abuse. The reason the most profound questions need to be asked is because we're actually talking about psychological life and death, if not other forms of life and death. We're talking about regaining a sense of humanity after having known the experience of losing it. It is a profundity of emotional territory, psychological territory, that requires one to truly seek to take on pain as master in, like pain as sensei, pain as teacher. It is a territory in which one is behooved. You must take your own pain as teacher. There's no other way of going about not just recovering from torture or narcissistic abuse, but there's really kind of a light-hearted note here, or a light, like there's light in the room note here, but to like grow as a human and self-actualize. The most profound questions aren't just a matter of Buddhism or torture or narcissistic abuse. The most profound questions are questions of human existence. This experience, the experience of surviving narcissistic abuse, I'm going to say this in a funny way, threatens to turn you into the realest person that you would ever be. Because in order to process this stuff, you're going to have to get really real. What does that mean? What is the experience of recovering your sense of self, regaining a sense of humanity? What does that look like in more practical psychological terms? Well, you might consider that the only way that the state of affairs that one is in after torture, after narcissistic abuse, that utter suspension from feeling that oneself is available and that there's a cohesive humanness about one only ends up in those state of affairs as a result of overwhelming pain. Overwhelming pain is the only thing that would result in the island of your ego that you live in being suspended from the rest of you, which is the case through torture, through narcissistic abuse. It's like the narcissist grabs your identity, what you know to be you, peels it away from the rest of you, saws the cords that normally connect you to yourself, and now your identity, like what you know to be yourself, is suspended from the rest of yourself in an atmosphere of, echoes of the torture chamber, echoes of the narcissistic abuse. You're suspended by the leftover reverberations of the pain. So, recovering from narcissistic abuse needs to be a gradual, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, coming back down to reality, so to speak. Imagine that you are suspended somehow up. You need to kind of let yourself down. You need to learn how to stop holding yourself up, which is what the narcissist leaves you doing. How much time in a torture chamber does it take before the victim becomes their own torture chamber? That's what narcissistic abuse does. First, the narcissist suspended you. Now you are left kind of suspending yourself, somehow self-perpetuating the suspension. in this atmosphere, again, of echoes and reverberations of the pain that yourself is drowning in. I could say it like this: the narcissist takes you kind of up, or I could say it like they hold you here while they bury the rest of you. In order to get back, in order to regain the parts of yourself that you're disconnected from because of pain, parts of yourself, your heart and your gut and your mind, and parts of yourself are in pain, subsumed in pain. And if enough parts of yourself, your needs over here and your body over here and this, if enough parts of yourself are subsumed in pain, no wonder, this is what I was explaining earlier, there is this suspension of whatever remains of yourself, this kind of small sense of identity. And you're awash in some like atmospheric pain that yourself is drowning in more directly. It's like yourself is caught in the dense pieces of pain, and all of these pieces of you and the balls of pain are orbiting this sense of self that you're left with. And you're trying to get in touch with these parts, but it's really painful, so you're actually trying to not feel pain. This is the state of affairs. You and your psyche, your ego, your nervous system are trying to not feel pain, right? That's kind of what you're built to do, not feel pain. Meanwhile, there are parts of yourself that are trapped in pain such that the only way to get to them is by feeling pain. You're screwed. You've been brought to this place through overwhelming pain, and what I've just suggested is that the way back down to yourself is through the pain. The way this works kind of more practically, or the way this looks more practically, is that throughout your daily life, throughout your weekly life, triggers and things that you do that bring up shame and things that you do that bring up, the various instruments of torturous pain that the narcissist left you with, triggers and moments like this are moments where a part of yourself is being called to the surface. But if you imagine that a part of yourself is at the core of the pain, in order to rise into consciousness, it's going to arrive with pain first. This is the beginning of viewing pain as a teacher. Hey, pain, hey, shame, I want to get to the part of myself that's been, somewhat corrupted by the shame, subsumed in a tomb of shame. I want to get to that part. Okay, well, you can imagine the shame might say, okay, well, in order to get there, you're going to have to feel a lot of this. Maybe all of it. And this is where you learn to take pain as a teacher. This is how you practice it. The way that you get parts of yourself that are subsumed in pain to come to the surface is you make yourself more of a safe environment. Imagine that you find like a scared, tortured child, and you want them to come out into the light so you can give them a hug. But they don't feel you're safe. This is the dynamic between you and pieces of yourself that you're trying to get in touch with. You need to somehow, and it's different for everybody, you have to signal somehow to these parts of yourself that it's actually safe to come to the surface with the pain. This part of you is afraid of how they'll look in the light. This part is afraid you might reject them or criticize them if they make themselves vulnerable. And you've got to become the type of person who would have so much empathy that even the most spontaneously aversive appearance of pain and shame and guilt and the underbelly muck, you would even be able to open your arms to that. It might not be so easy. I'm not saying just, I'm so open-armed all the time. But well, it's quite the opposite. It's like, I gotta open my arms more. Oh, I gotta open my arms more. Oh, wait, it's working. Oh. The way that you make yourself feel like more of a safe environment so parts of yourself can rise to the surface despite pain or even with pain is by strengthening yourself. You need to gain a greater sense of inner strength. And you do that by maybe opening up more with people in your life so that you feel like there is more of a kind of social net for you. Like you're more welcome than you thought because you were more vulnerable than you were previously and it went okay. Right? You need to take calculated risks. How can I signal to myself that there is more of a safety net in me, that I am more of a safety net? Well, I can take time to care about myself. I can focus on breathing. I can calm down. I can do some sort of physical thing that generates a sense of safety in me. I can put on calming music. I can speak with somebody. I can do things that interest me. I can feed myself enough or well or whatever. I can pay attention to myself. I can strengthen myself, make myself a safer space. So that, and here's part of the confusion of recovering, so that pain can rise up. Isn't that why it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back? The 2 steps forward is, okay, I've become a safer environment for myself. I've become a stronger person for myself. And then the 1 step back is, oh, the pain rises in direct response and direct proportion to the increased safety and strength. You should be fluctuating to some extent between, okay, I've made this leap forward, I feel safer, I feel stronger, or whatever. Oh, ow, ouch, pain. That's what you're trying to do. So, I'm going to end the video here. You might consider some specific way. Reflect on your life, which is already, reflection is already a signal to yourself that it is safe. Not only because it's like you have the time to reflect, you're not caught up being in fight or flight, but also because proper reflection requires a certain state of mind, a certain calmness, a certain quietness, and openness, patience. And these are things that only someone who feels safe can tap into. And it's not black and white, it's relative. You get better at reflection, you get better at everything the more safe that you feel. The more strong that you feel, there's more patience and more of everything. You might reflect on some ways in which you are signaling to yourself that it isn't safe, that you could maybe stop doing that so much, or you could try something else. You might reflect on some way that you might be signaling to others that it's not safe, or I'm not feeling safe. And you might, if not challenge that, look more closely at that. And that willingness to look more closely may be the first signal that you offer to yourself that it's safe between you and yourself. And that's what you're trying to get back to, because the torture, the narcissistic abuse meant it's not safe between me and myself. It's not safe to be myself. It's not safe to have a self, because the self is what gets tortured. The self is what gets abused. The self is what gets overwhelmed. And you've got to somehow reverse this script. And it's going to look like, in the same way that the sense of humanity and the sense of self was slowly chipped away at, you have to slowly chip away at what's been implanted in that space between you and yourself. It's a patient project. It's a worthy project. You deserve to do the work. Thanks for listening. If you want my help personally, click the first link in the description below to book a call with me. Click the second link to take a free narcissistic abuse recovery quiz. You can write about your current pain point at the bottom of the quiz. I'll get back to you in a few days. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see more. Like this video if you do. Comment your thoughts. Ask some questions if you have any. And I will talk to you soon.